Every personality carries a shadow, a dimension of the psyche that lives beneath awareness, shaping us in quiet and often unsettling ways. For the INFJ and the INTJ, whose lives are guided by intuition and vision, this shadow holds a function that feels foreign, almost contradictory: introverted sensing. Psychologists and typologists have called it the Daemon function, not because it is evil, but because it appears when we are most vulnerable, reminding us of failures, anchoring us to past experiences we would rather escape. Yet in older traditions, the word demon meant something different: an inner guide, a spirit of wisdom that could lead a person toward truth. Both meanings are relevant here. For Ni-dominant types, Psi is both adversary and potential ally. In this journey, we will explore how this forgotten function reveals itself in INFJs and INTJs, how it unsettles them, and how, when integrated, it can provide balance to their visionary way of being. To understand why introverted sensing is so destabilizing for INFJs and INTJs, we must first consider what stands at the center of their conscious identity: introverted intuition, or Ni. Ni is not concerned with details, nor with the past as it actually happened. Its gaze is inward and forward, searching for patterns, connections, and trajectories that extend beyond the present moment. For these types, life is not a series of isolated events but a continuous unfolding of meaning. They move through the world as if guided by a compass pointing to some hidden north, trusting insights that are difficult to explain but rarely without significance. Now imagine placing against this function its mirror opposite, a process that distrusts abstraction and instead clings to the tangible. Introverted sensing, or Psi, values fidelity to what has been experienced before. It recalls the details of past events, reproduces sensations with uncanny vividness, and preserves traditions that give continuity to personal and collective life. Where Ni seeks the emerging horizon, Psi returns again and again to what is known, familiar, and already lived. For the Ni-dominant personality, this is not only alien but disruptive. The visionary confidence of Ni depends upon being able to detach from the literal, to reinterpret the past rather than be bound by it. Psi threatens that detachment by demanding precision, by insisting that what has already occurred carries weight that cannot simply be reimagined. It points back to the record of memory, saying, "This is how it was. This is what you must not forget." To the intuitive mind that thrives on possibility, this feels like being chained to a ledger of facts and impressions it would rather move beyond. This clash creates a profound tension in the INFJ and INTJ psyche. In daily life, it may show up as an unease with details, a resistance to routine, or a discomfort with environments steeped in tradition. Yet beneath those surface irritations lies something deeper, the sense that the past might intrude upon the vision of the future. The more an INFJ or INTJ invests in their inner images of what could be, the more threatening it feels to be pulled backward into what has already been. When Psi emerges in its unconscious, demon, form, the effect can be destabilizing. Memories may surface not as gentle reminders but as sharp intrusions. The INFJ or INTJ can feel overwhelmed by recollections that contradict their current understanding, as if the psyche is demanding fidelity to details that resist reinterpretation. This is why Ni dominants often describe being haunted by the past. They do not naturally dwell there, but when Psi forces itself into awareness, it does so with an intensity that feels accusatory, even punishing. Yet within this struggle lies the possibility of growth. The very opposition between Ni and Psi reveals what each lacks. Ni, in its brilliance, risks detachment from the ordinary fabric of life. It can become abstract to the point of losing touch with what is concretely true. Psi, though often rigid, safeguards that concreteness. It remembers what was actually said, what was actually done, what was actually felt. In the clash between these two functions, the Ni-dominant personality confronts both its vulnerability and its opportunity to remain visionary while also learning to honor the grounding presence of memory. When introverted sensing rises in the unconscious lives of INFJs and INTJs, it often carries the face of a demon. This is not because memory itself is evil, nor because tradition or detail is inherently destructive. Rather, it is because of the way Psi emerges when neglected, raw, distorted, and overwhelming. For types who orient themselves through intuition, through visions of what could be, the sudden intrusion of what has already been can feel like a haunting presence they cannot dismiss. For the INFJ, this demon Psi often takes the form of replayed moments of failure, especially in the relational and ethical domain. Their dominant intuition may want to move forward, toward reconciliation or growth, but the unconscious Psi pulls them backward into a scene they wish they could forget, the conversation that went wrong, the gesture that was misinterpreted, the promise that was broken. These images come with sensory vividness, as though they are happening again in the present moment. Instead of memory being a teacher, it becomes an accuser. The INFJ finds themselves defending against echoes, unable to explain why the past feels so alive, yet so condemning. For the INTJ, the same demon wears a different mask. It drags them not into relational guilt but into strategic regret. Psi reminds them of the plan that failed, the investment that was wasted, the opportunity they did not seize in time. While their Ni wants to keep projecting forward, toward the next horizon, Psi interrupts with a sharp reminder of miscalculation. The INTJ may experience this as a corrosive self-doubt, as if their intuitive grasp of patterns cannot be trusted. Every misstep of the past becomes evidence that they are not as capable as they imagine themselves to be. Both types, when caught in this grip, can become unusually rigid. The INFJ who normally thrives on possibilities may suddenly insist on exact details, correcting others with unusual harshness. The INTJ who typically builds long-range strategies may obsessively retrace all decisions, demanding certainty that can never be found. In these moments, the demon is not simply memory but memory twisted into a weapon, used by the psyche against itself. The experience is often isolating. Because Psi is not a conscious strength for Ni-dominant types, they cannot easily explain to others why they are so preoccupied with past details. Friends may encourage them to let it go, which only deepens the frustration, because the memory refuses to fade. Instead, it loops, replaying with sensory clarity, each time insisting that the present cannot be trusted until the past is resolved. Here we see why this function carries such a dark archetypal name. In its unconscious form, it does not offer comfort or grounding. It attacks the foundations of the INFJ and INTJ's self-trust, undermining the visionary confidence that normally sustains them. It whispers that the past cannot be escaped, that the future is nothing more than repetition, that every step forward will end in the same mistakes already made. For types who live by their vision, there are few torments greater than this. And yet, even here, in the demon's grip, lies the possibility of transformation. The darkness of Psi exposes what Ni would prefer to ignore, that visions unanchored by lived experience risk becoming untethered. The haunting force of memory is a distorted attempt to bring balance. But in this raw and unconscious form, it can only destabilize, leaving the INFJ and INTJ feeling trapped between what they imagine and what they cannot forget. If the unconscious form of introverted sensing can feel like a demon for INFJs and INTJs, then its integrated form deserves the older name, Daemon. In ancient thought, a demon was not a monster but a guiding spirit, an unseen companion that connected the human to something greater than themselves. To recognize Psi in this light is to see it not as an enemy of intuition, but as a subtle ally, pointing Ni dominant types toward balance, continuity, and groundedness. For the INFJ, whose natural energy flows toward people, patterns, and future visions of harmony, Psi as Daemon becomes a quiet reminder of what has already been learned through lived experience. Instead of replaying failures as accusations, it recalls them as lessons. It anchors their compassion in the reality of history, the relationships that shaped them, the values inherited from family or culture, the embodied experiences that taught them the limits of idealism. When Psi functions this way, the INFJ becomes not only a visionary but also a custodian of memory, able to bring forward traditions that sustain communities. Their empathy gains depth because it is rooted in something remembered, not only imagined. For the INTJ, the Daemon of Psi provides a similar counterbalance. Normally their gaze is trained far ahead, scanning for opportunities and weaknesses in the terrain before them. But Psi brings an awareness that progress is built upon continuity. It reminds them that the past is not just a catalogue of errors but also a reservoir of strategies that worked. Instead of eroding their confidence, Psi stabilizes it by offering evidence of resilience, times when careful preparation paid off, or when endurance carried them through difficulty. In this sense, Psi helps the INTJ avoid reinventing the wheel, grounding their vision in practices that have stood the test of time. At its best, Psi as Daemon transforms haunting repetition into continuity of meaning. The same memories that once accused can become sources of guidance. Where the Daemon whispers, "You will always fail as you did before," the Daemon whispers, "You endured before, and you can endure again." The difference lies in whether Psi is repressed and erupts chaotically, or whether it is acknowledged and integrated as part of the whole psyche. This transformation does not erase the tension between Ni and Psi. They will always be opposites, one looking forward into abstraction, the other looking back into detail. But integration allows them to form a dialogue. Ni provides vision, the sense of a possible horizon. Psi provides grounding, the sense that each step toward that horizon must honor the terrain already crossed. Together, they protect the INFJ and INTJ from two extremes, from drifting into detachment on the one hand, and from becoming trapped in memory on the other. To experience Psi as Daemon is to feel that the past, rather than a prison, can become a guide. It is to realize that memory can serve vision, that traditions can provide stability without suffocating growth, and that even the most visionary personality requires roots as well as wings. For INFJs and INTJs, this recognition turns their most unconscious function from a source of torment into a hidden source of wisdom, an inner companion who whispers not only warnings, but also reminders of strength. Although INFJs and INTJs share the same dominant function of introverted intuition and the same unconscious shadow of introverted sensing, the way this dynamic plays out is shaped by the rest of their functional stack. The differences are subtle yet significant, and they reveal how the same shadow can wound in distinct ways, and also how it can be transformed differently for each type. For INFJs, life is often experienced through the lens of relationships, values, and the emotional atmosphere of their environment. Their auxiliary extroverted feeling orients them toward maintaining harmony, seeking to support and nurture others, and finding meaning through shared ideals. When Psi rises in its unconscious Daemon form, it tends to seize upon memories of interpersonal failure. An INFJ may relive a conversation where they said the wrong thing, or recall a moment when their efforts to help were misinterpreted. These recollections often arrive with sensory intensity. The INFJ might remember the exact tone of voice, the look in someone's eyes, or the physical setting in which the moment occurred. Instead of fading with time, the memory feels fresh, alive, and accusing. Because the usual mode of operating is to look forward with I, these sudden intrusions of Psi can feel especially painful. They tear the INFJ out of the narrative they are building for themselves and force them to revisit fragments of a past they would prefer to transcend. Yet when Psi is integrated, INFJs can draw from these same memories in a different way. Rather than functioning as accusations, they become reminders of growth. The INFJ learns to see not only the mistakes but also the endurance, the lessons, and the wisdom gained. This grounding allows them to deepen their empathy. They become more realistic about human limitations and more compassionate because they remember their own. In this sense, Psi provides the INFJ with continuity of care, an anchor that ensures their intuitive visions remain connected to lived experience. For INTJs, the emphasis is not typically on harmony but on strategy. Their auxiliary extroverted thinking pushes them toward organizing, structuring, and executing plans in the external world. When I gives them an image of the future, T provides the machinery to make it real. But when Psi erupts in demon form, it undermines this confidence. It drags the INTJ into memories of failed strategies, missed opportunities, or moments when their plans collapsed. Unlike the INFJ, who may relive emotional wounds, the INTJ tends to relive tactical errors. They may obsess over a decision that seemed rational at the time but proved costly, or over a missed chance that cannot be reclaimed. The sensation is not simply regret, it is destabilization. Because I thrives on projecting forward, the INTJ depends on trusting their internal compass. When Psi interrupts, it does so with a ledger of past missteps, whispering that the compass cannot be trusted. This can lead the INTJ into paralyzing self-doubt, where every new plan is shadowed by the memory of what went wrong before. When integrated, however, Psi provides a stabilizing influence. Instead of replaying failures as accusations, it recalls the patterns of endurance that sustained them in the past. The INTJ learns to value continuity, to respect tradition not as a prison but as a framework within which innovation can thrive. Psi offers them a way to measure progress not only by vision but also by lived evidence. In this way, the INTJ becomes a strategist who does not merely leap from one horizon to the next but builds upon the enduring foundations of what has already proven effective. Both INFJs and INTJs experience Psi as an uneasy weight in their psyche, yet the focus of that weight differs. For the INFJ, it is relational and ethical memory. For the INTJ, it is tactical and strategic memory. One is haunted by conversations and connections, the other by decisions and outcomes. Both, however, face the same challenge: learning to transform memory from an accuser into a guide. When this transformation occurs, the demon becomes a demon. For the INFJ, memory grounds compassion. For the INTJ, memory stabilizes strategy. In each case, the past ceases to be an anchor that drags them backward and becomes instead a root that nourishes their vision of the future. Shadow functions cannot be erased, nor can they be permanently suppressed. They live within the psyche as part of the whole, whether acknowledged or not. For INFJs and INTJs, the work of growth lies not in defeating Psi, but in finding a way to integrate it, allowing the demon of memory to balance their intuitive vision rather than sabotage it. This integration does not happen quickly. It unfolds through practices of awareness, reflection, and embodied engagement with the past. One path is journaling. For Ni-dominant types, writing can provide a bridge between inner vision and concrete memory. Instead of allowing recollections to arrive unbidden and accusatory, they can be named, recorded, and contextualized. The INFJ may find relief in writing down the story of a painful interaction, reframing it not as a final judgment but as one scene in a larger narrative of growth. The INTJ may use journaling to track the decisions they have made, recognizing both failures and successes, and discerning patterns that strengthen their confidence in planning. In both cases, the act of writing turns the raw material of Psi into something consciously examined rather than unconsciously suffered. Another practice is ritual or tradition. Ni-dominant types often resist routine, fearing that it will stifle their vision. But when engaged deliberately, small rituals can ground them in continuity. For the INFJ, this might mean maintaining practices that honor relationships, revisiting old letters, celebrating anniversaries, or creating family traditions that remind them of their roots. For the INTJ, rituals may take the form of reviewing past projects before launching new ones, or honoring proven methods alongside innovation. In both cases, ritual transforms the weight of the past into a structure of meaning that supports, rather than undermines, their future orientation. Mindfulness of sensory detail is also essential. Because Ni is abstract and forward-looking, INFJs and INTJs can become disconnected from the immediate experience of their bodies and environments. Psi integration invites them to notice the concrete, the taste of food, the rhythm of breath, the texture of the world around them. This practice may seem simple, but it strengthens the bridge between intuition and memory, reminding them that visions are realized not in imagination alone but in embodied life. Finally, compassion toward the self is crucial. Both INFJs and INTJs, when haunted by Psi, are prone to harsh self-criticism, the INFJ for failing in relationships, the INTJ for failing in strategy. Integration requires a shift from judgment to acceptance. The demon of Psi does not come to punish but to remind. Memory, in this light, is not an accuser but a teacher. By acknowledging mistakes without collapsing into them, Ni-dominant types learn to carry their past with dignity, allowing it to steady their steps rather than arrest their movement. Integration of Psi does not erase the clash between past and future, detail and vision. That tension will always remain. But through conscious practices, the INFJ and INTJ can learn to live in dialogue with their shadow. Memory becomes not a loop of regret but a well of wisdom. Tradition becomes not a prison but a root. In this way, the demon of Psi is transformed, not into something tame or safe, but into a companion spirit that tempers intuition with remembrance. The journey through the psyche of the INFJ and INTJ is never only about vision. It is also about the shadows that accompany that vision, the forces that resist and reshape it. Among these, none is more enigmatic than introverted sensing, the function that crouches at the edge of awareness as both demon and demon. As demon, Psi unsettles. It pulls the Ni-dominant mind back into memories that cannot be escaped, into regrets that seem to nullify progress. It whispers that every step forward is doomed to repeat what has already gone wrong. In this form, it undermines trust in intuition itself, attacking the very foundation of how INFJs and INTJs orient their lives. Yet as demon, Psi steadies. It recalls not only failure but also endurance. It reminds these types that the future is not created from nothing but grows out of what has already been lived. In this form, memory does not accuse but guides. It becomes a quiet companion, grounding vision in continuity, anchoring insight in the soil of experience. The work of growth is not to banish one side in favor of the other but to hold both in awareness. To recognize that what feels like haunting can also become guidance. That the same past which binds can also root. For the INFJ, this means remembering that compassion deepens when grounded in lived history. For the INTJ, it means recognizing that strategy gains resilience when informed by experience. In the end, the demon and the demon are not two different functions but two faces of the same one. How they appear depends on whether they are denied or embraced. To confront the psi shadow is to discover that the most unsettling of inner figures may also be the one who, quietly, teaches us how to walk forward with both vision and remembrance.